headlines on the floor of Parliament. For more, here's the recap. The Speaker, Professor Michael Quay, on Friday directed the Electoral Commission to appear before Parliament 2 weeks after the ongoing registration exercise. Members of the House have complained about the challenges associated with the process.
I wish to direct so that this matter will not become a matter of any discussion whatsoever again, that 2 weeks after the registration exercise has come to an end, the Electoral Commission must send relevant representative or representatives to this honorable House and give the House a briefing, as honorable members have demanded and which honorable members deserve to have, and which is something that has got concrete precedent in the electoral history of this country.
The Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, in the course of proceedings, attempted to make comments on the Public Elections Regulation 2020, which was laid in the House on Thursday, but the leader was not allowed by the Speaker.
Drawing attention to a matter that I raised at Business Committee.
Honorable, please then resolve that matter with the Honorable Majority Leader, your colleague, in reference to a meeting I was not part of, and then at appropriate time we shall look at that. I will not allow a commentary on that matter.
Comment on the public elections regulations, for which we have to add mandates.
In an angle where you raise certain things over there, which you may want to follow up in any of our rules, and with your colleague where necessary. So please, leave that area alone now. Because I don't know how you're going to have a response. I want to be the fruitfulness of any unilateral discussion on the matter.
He engaged the media on his reservations about the new constitutional instrument.
It is not an instrument for which we can add, subtract, or delete, because it's inferior legislation to the Parent Act under Article 11 of the Constitution. But the new instrument that have been laid, Public Elections Regulation 2020, my reading of it gives me much to be concerned about, and to state authoritatively without fear of contradiction that the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections of Ghana is likely to be run on a provisional voter register.
The chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, Ben Abdallah Banda, offered views on the proposals by the Electoral Commission.
Whether their names are correctly spelled or the information that they gave prior to the registration exercise being taken place is authentic and accurate. And if there is any correction or rectification to be made, then they will take the appropriate step to do that. Hence, provisional register. The fact that the register is provisional doesn't derogate from the mandate or the power of the person to vote.
The ongoing registration exercise for the new voters' roll started on Tuesday, and some members of Parliament shared their observations in the House.
One of the communities, I asked them whether there's water even in their container. They said when you went there, they didn't wash their hands. There was no water. They got there was no water. Who is going to fetch the water and come and pour it in? With the Electoral Commissioner, the officer sitting there, did he dedicate people to at least, did they even think of all this? Go fetch water, come and pour in this for this person to watch before even they go to register. I just passed 2 polling stations here, Accra here, one just by my house. There's no container there. One of the new polling stations. This is where? Which just here, just at the back of Trade Fair. There's no container there.
Obviously, it's come with some level of breaches
of the social distancing protocols. And it cannot be stressed enough that social distancing, wearing of masks, and observing the hygiene protocols are dependent on our self-discipline.
Some members of the House reacted to the decision of the Tema West MP, Carlos Ahinkra, to resign as a Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry for breaching COVID-19 safety protocols.
Once you know that you've been affected by the virus, it is imperative that you self-isolate. And if you don't do that, then it means you may unwittingly be spreading the virus. Yes, you will take all the necessary precautions, but you never know what may happen. So I think it is most unfortunate that in the heat of the moment, Carlos felt compelled to go out there and monitor the registration process. Prosecution for what? Unless you can show that a particular individual contracted the virus by coming into contact with him because he went out on the monitoring, it will be difficult to establish a case for spreading COVID-19 unwillingly. So,
the coronavirus pandemic, health workers were offered a special allowance by government. The special allowance is 50% of the basic salary of workers considered as frontline staff. Host Central MP Benjamin Kodo on Wednesday posed questions to the Ministry of Finance on why designated health workers had still not received the allowance as promised. Deputy Minister of Finance Charles Edubuahin indicated that the health workers would be paid the allowance when the Ministry of Health presents the data of workers considered as frontline staff to the Ministry of Finance.
Put aside an amount of approximately 80 million cedis for this package. However, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health alongside the Ministry of Finance are together compiling the data and doing the necessary reconciliation, especially to determine the particular health sector workers who are eligible or are designated as frontline workers and hence eligible for this 50% salary package. It is taking this long because we've had to communicate with all these units, MDAs all over the country, for them to be able to then give us feedback as to who is on the front line, and then we then compile the data. This has been quite a challenging feat, especially within the current situation and pandemic.
In 2012, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, in collaboration with the Ministries of Water Resources, Works and Housing and Sanitation, offered a sole source contract to Conti International to improve the drainage systems in the Odo Basin and the Accra metropolitan area. The Minister for Works and Housing, Samuel Atachia, told the House government had abandoned the project because of its cost implications and other technical issues. MP for Ablekuma South, Alfred Okop Vanderpoy, questioned the justification of the minister.
Those things never came to light when I was the chief executive. So I want to suggest to you, Mr. Minister, that we do a thorough work with respect to AESL, feasibility report, and monies that were paid.
But the minister responded to the concerns and said government had gathered facts for civil and criminal cases regarding the matter.
It's not a patient that should tell the world the extent of his malady, but rather the doctor. And I can tell you that the experts have interrogated the handiwork of Conti and the payments, and a comprehensive investigation has been done. And all these documents, those who are interested, because we are police, can come to the ministry to peruse them. But eventually, if there's anything untoward or any deficiency, I think the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service is better placed to investigate these matters.
Members of Parliament eulogized former NPP General Secretary Kojo Usofie following his passing.
This illness is indeed real and very devastating. I believe that what the transition of Usofie signifies should urge us all to be very conscious of our existence and the fact of the rapid effect of COVID-19. he will forever be remembered when he lost the primaries to Obnai Dupont. And he's noted to have said that fewer delegates. I'm sure many of our colleagues here will now appreciate Ojo Owusu better to fear delegates. And indeed they are to be feared. They assure you even to the ballot box and they behave otherwise.
This is how the 7th week of this meeting has actually gone. We'll take a break here. When I come back, there is the From the Floor segment where the main issues will be broken down for your understanding.
Citi TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access Citi TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a news search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV on your television. Citi TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. Citi TV, it's your world.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
We live in a world where news travels fast, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate fact from fiction. Fact Finder brings fact-checking from the newsroom up close so you can separate truth from chaff. Be empowered to tell what's fake from what's real. Watch Fact Finder by the BBC on Citi TV every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Citi TV, it's your world.
The country is readying itself for the 2020 election. To do that, the Electoral Commission must put in place the legal framework to do that. This week, the Public Elections Regulation 2020 was presented to Parliament. On the From the Floor segment this week, we're having a discussion with the Chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee on what the proposals from the Electoral Commission are to guide this election, which is scheduled to happen in December 2020. Also, the minority leader has been reacting to the various proposals and other matters that are in this election regulation 2020. On the From the Floor segment, we have these two interesting interactions for you right here on the chamber. Hello and welcome back from the break. This is the From the Floor segment right here on the chamber. My name is Duke Mensah Opoku. I have with me the Honourable Member of Parliament for Finso South, Chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of the House. We're having a discussion about the new Electoral Commission regulations that have been laid in Parliament. It was laid on the second day of sitting this week. That is the Public Elections Regulations 2020. You're welcome, the Honourable Ben Abdallah Banda.
Thank you.
Now, the Public Elections Regulations Bill was laid in Parliament. The regulations is a constitutional instrument, was laid in Parliament this week. What we pick is that it is to amend portions of CI 94. What is different about this Public Election Regulations 2020?
Okay, let me thank you for this opportunity and say that, as you rightly pointed out, these regulations were laid in Parliament yesterday, and it is being referred to the subsidiary legislation committee. We haven't met to discuss it yet, okay, but I have a copy of the regulations 2020. So whatever I will say will be my personal opinion based on the proposed amendments that the EC is seeking to do with respect to Public Elections Regulations 2016, that's CI 94.
Okay.
Now, so the EC is proposing, first of all, that we should have for every presidential election. We all know that when it comes to presidential election, the returning officer is the electoral commissioner, in this case herself. But the EC is proposing that we have a returning officer for presidential elections in every constituency.
Okay.
So in every constituency. So that is a proposal that is yet to be accepted or rejected.
And in this case, that's going to be the district chairperson of the commission, or the one who will be leading the constituency in terms of the preparation of the elections. Is that the proposal, or it's not firmed up yet?
The returning officer for presidential election is being proposed to be appointed.
Okay.
So I know definitely that is going to fall on the district electoral officer, who is the returning officer for the parliamentary elections. And that is number one. So they are trying, the EC is proposing that we should distinguish between presidential and parliamentary elections. You recall that in the CI 94, which is the current public elections regulations, there is just public elections. There's no differentiation between presidential and parliamentary. It is just public elections, which obviously means both presidential and parliamentary election. But there is a conscious attempt and effort to draw a dichotomy between presidential and parliamentary, so that just as we have a returning officer for parliamentary elections, we can also have a returning officer for presidential election. That's number one. And then number two, you know, for parliamentary elections, the results are announced at the polling stations, and then all the ballot papers are brought to the districts, and the presidential too is announced. Except that for the presidential, from the district's office, the results are forwarded straight away to the headquarters in Accra. Now, what the EC is proposing is this. For convenience sake, the EC is proposing that when the results are declared at the districts, they should be forwarded. So there will be a regional collation officer in every region. So now we have 16 regions. There will be 16 regional collation officers. So that for every region where we have a regional collation officer, his duty or her duty is to collate all the results from the constituencies within his or her jurisdiction. And then they will collate all the results and then send one lump, one whole result, so to speak, to the headquarters. So the effect of this will be that at the end of the day, instead of the EC at the national office battling with results from various constituencies, in this case 275 constituencies, the EC will only collate results from 16 regions.
Okay.
Do you get it? So the 16, because the calculation would have been done from the district and then at the region, and then the results will be forwarded to the EC in Accra.
So this is some sort of a decentralization of the, if you want, of the collation of the results, so that instead of the chairperson or chairperson of the Electoral Commission having a strong room type of results, getting everything at a point in time, this one there's some sort of a systematic transmission of the results even at the national level.
Yes.
If they understand.
Yes, that's exactly so. So the proposal of the EC that with respect to the appointment of regional coalition officers, the EC is proposing per what we have, proposing the appointment of high court judges and then auditors, certain high-ranking public officials. But that is the proposition of the EC. That is yet to be examined in either accepted or rejected. And then the next proposal by the EC is the change of the closing period of the voting. You know, it starts from 7 to 5. But the EC is proposing, because of the circumstances surrounding COVID-19, we shift the time from 5 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So that's from 7 to 4 o'clock, so that the EC could have enough time to collate the results and then announce probably before darkness falls, and be able to forward everything to the district, and then whatever exercise is there to be undertaken, then it will be undertaken. That still remains a proposal, which has not been examined yet. And then I think that the next proposed amendment that the EC is suggesting is that, you know, you have the transferred voters list, and anybody who is a resident within an electoral area for a maximum of 12 months is qualified to have his or her vote transferred to an electoral area within a constituency of his choice. Now, the EC is proposing that instead of making it 12 months, we should rather amend it to read a person who is ordinarily resident or a person who is resident, so that the 12-month limitation period would have been taken away.
And does it support it with what we mean exactly by who, when we say someone is ordinarily resident in an area? Is that just to borrow what the Constitution says, or there's a different meaning with which the EC is coming in this CI?
Or just to borrow what the Constitution or any other law says about who is resident, who is ordinarily. The period for which a person is supposed to live in an electoral area to be qualified to have his or her vote transferred will be less than the 12-month period. That is the ultimate effect of the amendment that EC is seeking to do. And the reason is that the reason might be that this will take care of students who may be in school at that particular time, who may not necessarily have lived in their respective schools up to the period of 12 months, but who can still be qualified to have their vote registered to constituencies of their choice, so that they will not be required to or compelled to meet the 12-month limitation period. It suffices if the student has lived in the school, or is resident in the school, or is ordinarily resident in the school. That phrase is the basis, is the required basis for a person to qualify to have his or her vote transferred to an electoral area within a constituency of his choice. And then there's also this proposal by EC, which seeks to draw a dichotomy between who a registered voter is and who a voter is. A registered voter, per the definition in the Public Elections Regulation 2020, is a person whose name is found in the provisional register, and then a voter is one whose name is found in the certified register.
What's the difference?
So
That's quite confusing.
You see the difference. You know, we are carrying out a registration exercise now. Yes. When everything is completed, people would have gone and give information about their data and so on and so forth, and this data would have been recorded and pursuant to which they will be given ID card, voter ID cards. You know what EC normally does after the registration, every registration exercise, is to make public the voter register, so that people will go and have a look at the voter register so as to check whether their names are correctly captured, their pictures will match their names. Simply put, whatever information they've given to the EC prior to the registration or in the course of the registration is authentic and accurate and reflects what they indeed gave to the EC. So at that particular period or moment, the register which is displayed for people to come and have a look at so as to cross-check whether everything is accurate is a provisional. So that is a provisional. It's provisional, let me say, it's not final. Because if there is the need for certain amendment to be effected, maybe somebody's name is not well spelled, the picture is not captured, and so on and so forth, or the data which is supposed to be correctly captured in the register is not well captured, then the EC will have opportunity to correct. So at that stage, the register is termed as provisional. And so when it graduates from provisional to certified, that is where all the necessary corrections will have been rectified. And at the end of the day, EC can say that what I have is a true reflection of all the information that I got prior to the registration or in the course of the registration. Do you get it? So that is a difference that EC is trying to draw. But let me put my personal opinion. If somebody's name is in the provisional register, he's a voter, though he's called registered, and another person's name is in the certified, he's also a voter. He is called voter simplicity. That to me, in law, doesn't take away the voter's right as a voter to vote. Let's assume that the EC is not able to do the certification. The question that one will have to ask him or herself is, does it prevent a voter from voting? So the bottom line is, can a person whose name is found in the provisional voter be able to vote?
Okay.
Yes. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
So I don't think we should try and split hairs over this differentiation that EC is trying to do. Be that as it may, as I've said right from the outset, these are all proposals. When the subsidiary committee meets and in our thinking and wisdom, we think that this terminology might be confusing and for which reason it should be deleted. We may propose so, and you are aware that our proposal is also not final. I mean, the subsidiary legislation committee's proposal is not final.
We'll be debating.
Whatever we may also will be sent to the plenary. Except that, as these regulations are laid, even if we come up with proposals, we can't amend it. That is the unfortunate aspect of it. So if there is any amendment that will have to be effected, which will go to the substance or the kernel of the regulations, then as you do know, we have to withdraw and then insert the amendment and relay, or probably we have to garner to third majority of 4 members of the parliament to have this shut down. But looking through, probably this might not be any. There might not be any serious amendment so as to warrant this thing being shut down.
So generally, in your personal opinion, you think that this is, and as an experienced lawmaker, you think this amendment or this regulation is one that, do you think is one that will improve generally our electoral processes and make it much more transparent, fair, accountable, and all the good things that comes with the good governance credentials that Ghana has?
Oh yes, it will, because first of all, the purpose of this whole regulation is to make things as simple, and to make things as easy, and to make things as decentralized as possible. and probably to make it as less expensive as possible. Because you look at the decentralization of duties of the coalition of the presidential resource, for instance, right from district to region, and then from region. And in every region, all the political parties will have their representatives. And at the end of the day, after the results have been collated, they will be announced and pasted. And the representatives of the political parties or representatives of independent candidates will have to sign the requisite or the necessary forms as to certify that or to attest to the fact that what the result, whatever the result that they collated are a true reflection of whatever came from the constituencies, so that after that they will be forwarded to the national head office. So you realize that there will be no or little disputation as to the outcome of the presidential result, as at times it happens at the national coalition center. So I believe that it is a good thing when it is accepted, and when it is implemented, it will go a long way to enhancing our democracy and ensuring that it will achieve the purpose for which the regulations were brought, and so on and so forth. So I think that is good.
Okay, let's now come to the issue of the voter registration exercise. It was one of the issues that has dominated discussion in Parliament, because most of your colleagues have an interest, obviously, because it would affect the outcome of the elections. I'm sure you've also monitored what is going on in the media. You have heard what is going on in your constituency and all of that. There are issues that have come up so far about, especially in the COVID era, about social distancing and spreading out of people at the centers first 3 days, and all of the issues that have been associated with. What would be your, let me say, comments so far on about it's gone on so far for about 3 days? Your general impressions about what has gone on?
I think that so far, I'll say so good, except the news that we got from one or two constituencies in the Brown region where some confusion or chaotic situations erupted. But I think that at the end of the day, things have been brought under control. I haven't heard from anywhere that somebody is being intentionally or calculatedly disenfranchised. The EC cannot in any way make any attempt or any move to deliberately disenfranchise anybody. As prior to the elections, some were made to believe, because political parties and individuals will mobilize the people, as we always do, to go out and register. And secondly or thirdly, I haven't heard anywhere that police or military people are intimidating anybody, apart from what we heard prior to the registration, that there's the military presence in certain parts of the country, and it's not just restricted to one particular region. The defense minister, just after the Hulabalo, came out to give comprehensive information as to which areas that these military officers or men and women of the armed forces have been stationed. And there is a reason underlying that, and the reason is to ensure that nobody who is not a Ghanaian enters through the borders of Ghana into Ghana as to fraudulently register his or her name as a voter. So that explanation was given, and I haven't heard anything so far, except that the COVID preventive protocols we have seen on the tally, it appears are not being well complied with as it is expected.
And it's worrying. It's worrying.
Yes, in fact, it is a worrying trend, because we don't want a situation where at the end of the registration, instead of having something good at the end of the day, we end up having something bad which might get out of control. And this is not the making of the president. And it is not the making. In fact, all of us have a collective responsibility. So if you are a potential registrant and you think that you go on a particular day to go and register, the appropriate thing you have to do is to have your nose mask on and to have your sanitizer in your possession, and ensure that you observe the social distancing protocol. When it's your time to go and register, then you go and register. But if you don't go with a nose mask, if you don't go with a hand sanitizer, and you have yourself rubbing against somebody who is close to you, then at the end of the day, unfortunately, you would have occasioned a problem for yourself. So let me use this medium to appeal to all of us. I haven't gone to register yet. I'll go and register. To all of us to try and observe the social distancing, the protocols. And it's not expensive to do that. It's not expensive to do that. And it is for our own sake. And it is for the sake of the nation. So that the little resources that we have will not be expended on sicknesses that can obviously be avoided.
Okay.
So, so far so good, and it is something that we should all support and rally behind the EC to enable the EC to be able to finish off this registration exercise so that we can ready ourselves for the upcoming 2020 elections.
All right, Honorable. Final comment, maybe just a minute, and we'll wrap up the conversation.
Just a minute is that let me thank my constituents, people in the offensive side who might be viewing this program, and let me use this opportunity to thank them sincerely for the opportunity and the privilege they've given me to serve them for 12 years and to serve my nation and to serve an institution of Parliament. Though I'm leaving Parliament after 2020, that is not to mean that I'm leaving politics or I'm leaving them. I believe that inshallah, God and my nation, my party will give me another opportunity to serve them and to serve my nation in a different capacity. So I'm ready to work with them. I'm ready to work with the incoming MP to ensure victory for Nana Akufo-Addo and to ensure victory for the candidate himself. I've asked all those who supported me in one way or the other to rally behind the incoming MP so that victory will be ours at the end of the day. I'm most grateful.
Okay, so that's the Honourable Member of Parliament for Finso South, Chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, Member of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament as well, explaining to us what the Public Elections Regulations 2020 is all about and other related issues. We'll take a break here. When I come back, there is more on the chamber.
Let me thank you for attending to my call and our call at a very short notice. You would notice on the floor of Parliament my struggle to get the Speaker's attention to make a comment on the Electoral Commission of Ghana. On the Electoral Commission of Ghana. You are aware that a new instrument has been laid, and by virtue of Article 11, Parliament can only watch on. It is not an instrument for which we can add, subtract, or delete, because it's inferior legislation to the Parent Act under Article 11 of the Constitution. But the new instrument that have been laid, Public Elections Regulation 2020, I have a copy for you. Public Elections Regulations 2020, which has just been laid by the Majority Leader on behalf of the Independent Electoral Commission established under Article 45. My reading of it gives me much to be concerned about, and to state authoritatively without fear of contradiction that the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections of Ghana is likely to be run on a provisional voter register and not a certified final register, because in the definition column of the newly introduced regulations, the Public Elections Regulations, which replaces CI 94, registered voter in it is defined as, and I quote, for your purposes, registered voter is defined means a person whose name appears on the provisional voters register, not as it was in CI 94 on a certified final register. It means that the Electoral Commission is running behind time and is running for time and is gasping for time. What the implications and the ramifications will be on the 2020 presidential parliamentary elections, your guess is as good as mine. It also means that nominations for both presidential and parliamentary candidates will be on a provisional voter register, not certified final register. So it means if you were recommended by a voter and subsequently the voter's name is expunged or deleted, you may suffer consequences that I'm unable to explain. That is all I wanted to draw the Speaker's attention to, so that all of us will be prepared good enough to deal with this matter. So a registered voter is defined in the revised instrument which has just been laid to be somebody who is on a provisional voter register, not certified final register, which by law under CI 94, the Electoral Commission is even required to make copies of certified final copies to political parties for the purpose of conduct of elections. So it means that the presidential and parliamentary elections is likely to be conducted on a provisional voter register. Again, it exposes her unpreparedness, it exposes her unreadiness, and it exposes her threat to the sustenance of our democratic practice. Additionally, I'm urging the media and the Ghanaian public to take interest in what is going around the country. Many of the registration centers are not functional. In many areas, they are problematic, and we fear what we want, that many persons will be denied that inalienable right guaranteed under Article 42 of the Constitution. And that will mean you will suffer as a result of the inefficiencies and incompetence of the Electoral Commission. I urge the media, so far you've done pretty well, continue to expose the gaps and the lapses, and we should follow through daily the total number of persons registered across the country. We'll keep you posted again. So it's going to be a very brief press conference. I need to catch, I need to go to Tamale South.
You raised this matter at the business committee meeting. What's the feedback?
Feedback, there was an effort to define it properly. That effort, I'm waiting for the gazetted copy of it. This is what the table office gave me. And if that is what to go by, I worry. I wouldn't say so. I want the elections to be conducted on a certified final register, for nominations to be on a certified final register, not provisional. God bless you.
On the attitude of your colleague, Carlos. Let me ask.
The Public Elections Regulations 2020 will guide the conduct of the general elections scheduled in about 5 to 6 months this year. I'm sure you now have a fair appreciation of the proposals that the Electoral Commission is making to Parliament, which will be scrutinized by the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. We'll take a break here. When I come back, I'll tell you what I think about the major issues in Parliament this week. Stay with us.
It's inspiration. It's the word. The teachings.
When is your time? When is your season? When is your turn? No amount of lies, no amount of liars, political liars, financial liars, family liars, hatred or spiritual liars, no amount of it can stop you.
Tune in to Voice of Inspiration with Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on Citi TV.
Comprehensive news. The Citi Newsroom at 8 p.m. on Citi TV is your most engaging news bulletin on TV.
It's a very that's too bad. The youth are still throwing stones. They are still throwing stones here into our direction. And can I come in? I want to come in. Okay.
Telling your stories better with correspondence covering every corner of the country.
Getting access to potable water is a daily struggle for residents of Kakichekopi and Balekopi communities in the Ada East district of the Greater Accra region.
Citi Newsroom at 8 p.m. Very fluent with issues that concern you.
This inquiry me cover on Mr. Rabbi, some one is in a bread. Told you can a 1 week. What do you say?
Is it unfair? What all this? What all this? We are dying! We are dying! We are dying for Choco!
With Citi Newsroom, your community is now connected.
In this our community, all of us we are very sorry about this school. If we go to see the children, they are so small. Even my grandchildren are there. My grandsons are there. If they come out from the school, how would you say?
Every day at 8 p.m., Citi Newsroom is live on Citi TV.
Welcome to Duke's View. This week I have a couple of issues that I want to address. First of all, it's got to do with our health sector. On the floor of Parliament this week, the Deputy Minister of Finance had cause to tell members of the House after he was questioned on the COVID-19 special allowance that is supposed to be given to the frontline health workers. It's not amusing, it's not nice, it's not great that 3 months after the promise was made, frontline health staff have not been paid the money that is supposed to go to them. But of course, the blame has to go to someone, and that blame is going to the Ministry of Health, who so far, we are told, per the answer that was given by the Ministry of Finance, that the required reconciliation that is supposed to be done in terms of the accounts, the names that are supposed to be presented to the Ministry of Finance for the frontline health staff to be paid this special allowance, which is to boost their morale, that has not been done. Why has the Ministry of Health not done that? We've had complaints, in the course of our work, reports that the required names that are supposed to be submitted to the Ministry of Health for onward submission to the Ministry of Finance, there's even some form of disagreement within the associations as to who qualifies to take that amount. I think that has to be settled as quickly as possible by the Ministry of Health and the associations, so that the hard work, the toil, the sacrifice that the frontline health workers have made to keep our health system afloat in these difficult times will not go to waste, that their sacrifices would really be appreciated, their sacrifices will really be rewarded, because it is not very appreciative and does not send a good signal that after working so hard, even though the amount 80 million Ghana cedis has been set aside, as we speak, no disbursement has been done. It is not the best. Let me move to another issue which has also been very, very critical on the floor of the House. Many members of Parliament have been observing the processes of the rollout for the registration exercise for the new voters register in their constituencies. Various issues have come up. I mean, disregard for social distancing, the fact that the processes are not going well as it ought to. It's been some 3 to 4 days of the exercise. It is important that the Electoral Commission takes stock and understands where all of these issues are coming up from. In terms of the communication side, I must commend them. They've done very well. They have quickly responded to a lot of the issues that have come up, even to some concerns that some people may term as mundane. Issues such as names that have been wrongly spelled and even dates of death that have been wrongly captured on these cards or these printouts have actually had the Electoral Commission has had cause to release statements to that effect, giving information, updating the public and all of that. That is very, very good. It broadens the understanding of the general public as to what is going on and gives us, the media gives us news, it gives us further and gives us the message to present out there. But the practical steps that needs to be taken to rectify the issues on the ground, the issues at the polling centers, the fact that social distancing need to be adhered to, the fact that the sanitizers, people have to use them, the fact that we shouldn't leave everything to personal responsibility, but as an institution, the Electoral Commission must ensure that the right thing is being done. That is what needs to be done. The conversation has to move away from just, releasing statements and speaking to the issues and responding to them, for us to see real action at the various polling centers or the various registration centers for that matter. What is good is that this is a phased exercise. So after every 6 days, it will move to another place where people can register. We're already in a public health situation. The numbers are going up. The exercise must be conducted in such a way that the issue is not compounded. Otherwise, what will be the use of getting people out there or telling people to go out and vote when they will go to the registration center and come back worse off? I don't think that's the situation that everyone or anyone at all in this country wants to happen. That's why the Electoral Commission must be up and doing and resolve all the critical challenges that have come up in the first few days of this registration exercise. Of course, the Speaker has summoned them. Says 2 weeks after the registration exercise ends, which will be on the August 6th, 2 weeks after the August 6th, they should come to Parliament to brief members on how it is prepared to roll out this year's elections. So these are the issues the Electoral Commission must be up and doing, but the Ministry of Health and the associations that are under it must also get the required data and send to the Ministry of Finance so that the hard work of the frontline health staff will be appreciated. Ghana is the only country we have. We must do things to ensure that the systems and our development goes as planned. And that's my view for the week. So that's how we wrap up this week's edition of The Chamber right here on Citi TV. Stay tuned and stay with us for the best of our programming.
About to change your Sunday night for the better.
This Sunday on the Upside Down Show, we have a conversation with one of Ghana's most iconic female artists. She's equal parts creative and controversial. The ever-dazzling hitmaker Miss Bell will be spilling it all and putting to rest all the